Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to step right into the boardroom at American Express. We're going to break down a really high-stakes decision that, let's be honest, companies everywhere are still trying to figure out. And it's all about one big question. What does the future of work actually look like? Okay, so let's get right into it. Picture this. The year is 2021, and Juan Ortiz, who's the CEO of American Express over in Spain, has this huge choice to make. On the surface, it sounds kind of simple, right? 2 days in the office or 3? But this one decision, wow, it was going to have these massive ripple effects, not just for his team in Spain, but for the entire global company. So you got to remember, this is after 18 pretty wild months of everyone being forced to work from home. Ortiz got this massive task on his plate. He has to come up with a new hybrid plan for his team. And here's the kicker. Whatever he proposes is going to be a major factor in how Amex sets its policy for the entire world. Talk about pressure, right? And here's the real plot twist, the thing that makes this whole story so interesting. This whole mandatory work from home thing, it was actually a huge success for the business. I mean, financially, things were going great. Productivity was up, profits were up. So trying to argue that everyone needed to rush back to the office, that was a really, really tough sell. So, okay, to really get why this was such a tough call, we've got to go back a bit. Let's rewind to the beginning of the pandemic, when, everything just got turned completely upside down. All right, so back in early 2020, when nobody knew what was going on, the leadership at Amex made a really important call. They decided their number one priority was their people. The global CEO, Steve Squeri, he came out and made a promise, a big one, no layoffs in 2020 because of the pandemic. And that one move, it built an incredible amount of trust right when everyone was feeling the most insecure. And this is where you can really see the tension building. Think about it. A huge chunk of Amex's business, like 30%, is tied to travel. And travel just stopped, dead in its tracks. So yeah, revenue took a nosedive. But then by 2021, something amazing happened. The company wasn't just treading water, it was bouncing back, and fast. Performance was looking strong, all while their entire workforce was logged in from their kitchen tables and home offices. But, the numbers on a spreadsheet don't always tell the whole story. While the financials looked great, the managers, they were starting to worry. They were thinking about the long term, about the invisible costs of everyone being apart. What were they losing that you just can't measure in a quarterly report? Yeah, and this quote from a senior manager named Elena Cardenas, it just hits the nail on the head. She talks about how clear, timely communication is in the Amex DNA. And that was the fear, right? That the company's special culture, that very DNA, was all about in-person connection. And maybe, just maybe, it was starting to fade away. So leadership is looking at this and seeing some pretty big risks down the road. I mean, think about it. How do you teach new employees the company's core values, what they call the blue box values, if you've never even shaken their hand? How do you get those random, brilliant ideas that pop up during a coffee break? These weren't just minor worries. They felt like real threats to the very soul of the company. And that brings us right to the heart of the problem. How do you find that perfect balance between the flexibility everyone loves and the culture you're terrified of losing? Well, they decided to do the smartest thing you can do in that situation. They just asked their employees. And wow, when the results came in, the data could not have been clearer. A huge majority, 88% of employees in Spain, said they wanted a hybrid model, specifically 2 days in the office. Another 12% wanted to stay fully remote. And the number of people who wanted to come back to the office 5 days a week? 0. A big fat 0. Nobody. So this is the real dilemma, right? It boils down to this. Option 1, the 2-day plan. You give people exactly what they're asking for, which is a huge win for recruiting and morale. But the big risk is that teams might never be in the office on the same day, which could really hurt collaboration. Then you have option 2, the 3-day plan. It feels safer, right? It protects the culture and makes sure people actually see each other. The downside? You're basically ignoring the 88% of your team who told you what they want. And you have to remember, this wasn't happening in a vacuum. It wasn't just an internal Amex discussion. Outside the walls of the company, something huge was happening in the job market, and it made this decision even more critical. Just in 2021, get this, over 40 million people in the US quit their jobs. 40 million. It was such a massive movement, they gave it a name, the Great Resignation. People were rethinking their entire lives, their careers, and suddenly the power dynamic was shifting. Employees had a lot more say. And the data was just flooding in from all over. Survey after survey showed that workers, especially millennials and Gen Z, were demanding flexible work. It wasn't just a nice little perk anymore, it was becoming a total deal breaker. So for Amex, getting this wrong wasn't just about making people a little unhappy. It meant you could literally lose your best talent to another company that was listening.
Okay, so all of this brings us back to Juan Orti. He's got all the data, he's heard all the arguments for and against, and now the global leadership team is waiting to hear what he recommends. The ball is in his court.
And look at everything he has to balance. On one hand, you've got what his current team wants right now, more flexibility. On the other, you've got the long-term health of the company, its very identity. This is about hiring the best people, about their reputation as an employer, about making sure the culture is inclusive. It's about protecting those blue box values for the next generation.
So it all comes down to this. What do you do? Do you play it safe with the structured 3-day model to protect that precious company culture, even though you know it's not what most of your people want? Or do you lean into the future of work? Do you take that bigger risk with the 2-day approach your team is begging for and just trust that you'll figure out new ways to keep everyone connected? The global team is waiting for an answer. So what would you do? What's the right call? That's the debate.